Hi and welcome to this video. In this video, you're going to see how to set up Postal, which is a free open source SMTP server, and you can use it for sending bulk emails. So if you want to send millions of emails, this would probably be the best free solution for you. So this is what Postal looks like, and we're going to see how to set it up. You can set up multiple organizations, and in every organization, you can have what is essentially called a mail server. And in those mail servers, you can set up domains. So you can set up as many domains as you want to. And we're going to see how to do all that. And most importantly, one of the best features of Postal is that it allows you to send emails using the IP pool setting. This is a way for you to rotate the different IPs that can be used for sending mail. So if you have multiple emails, you can add them here, and we're going to see how we can do that all in this video. So the next part, I want to talk about the tools I'm going to use and what you're going to need as well. So here is a list of what I'll be using in this tutorial, and you can use what I'm using, or I'll tell you alternatives. First of all, I have this post already written. I'll put the link in the description. This is just to help me install Postal. So if you follow along with this on your own, you're probably going to get lost. So make sure you watch every step of the video. Here as well, I have certain cloud providers you can use for this. And the reason I'm adding this is because you can get extra IPs here, especially for Vultr and DigitalOcean. You can get, and even Hetna and Contabo, you can get additional IPs. So I will be using Vultr for this tutorial. And if you want to use Vultr, I'll add the link in the description. I'll add the link below, and you can get $300 of free credit if you use the link. The same is true for DigitalOcean. You can get $200 of free credit. Feel free to support me. So the reason I'll be using Vultr is because Vultr has an easy interface. You can add a reserved IP. You can add as many IPs as you need to, and we're going to see how to add extra IPs, because this is crucial in sending millions of emails. We'll also look at compute when I deploy the server. The next thing I'll use is Cloudflare. So you can use any platform to manage your DNS. Even Vultr has a DNS management system. If you come here under DNS, you can add a domain and change the name servers wherever that is needed. But I'll be using Cloudflare. You can follow along with me with Cloudflare. And the documentation for Postal is here. I'll also add the link to the documentation. If you click there on getting started, most of the things you're seeing here are all adapted from this, all right? Are all adapted from the documentation. So if anything is not clear, you can go to the documentation. Let's get started. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to deploy a compute server on Vultr. You can use any cloud provider, and if you're going to use any which I've linked to below, feel free to support me by using the link. I'm going to deploy a server on Vultr. So before you continue, on Vultr and DigitalOcean, you'll need to request for SMTP port to be open for you, and they usually open it for you. So just give them the details they need, and they will open the SMTP for you. And the good thing is that they will open it on account level basis. So any other instances you deploy will be able to send mail. Here, you should probably go with a dedicated CPU. All right. If you're just testing, you should go with a shared. But if you want to send lots and lots of emails, just go with a dedicated CPU. You can even go with the bare metal if that is within your budget. Dedicated CPU, and I will choose my data center in Chicago. And also note that once you deploy your extra IPs, they have to be in the same data center. So for this, let me go with CPU optimized. And CPU optimized, you see I can get 4 virtual CPUs, 8 GB for $80 a month. If I go for the same thing on general, with the general purpose for 4 virtual CPUs, I can't get 4 virtual CPUs, and I need 4 virtual CPUs. They recommend 2, but I'm going to go with 4. So if you look here, I added that. They recommend 2 and 4 GB of RAM, but always go with higher So I'm going to go with the CPU optimized for 4 virtual CPUs and 8 GB of RAM, and that will be $80 a month. Click on configure to continue. And for the operating system, I'm going to go with Debian 12. And then SSH keys. If you don't have SSH keys, make sure you add an SSH key. You can go to your account and just copy the public key in there. If you go here under account, there is a section for SSH key. You can add your SSH key there. So I'm just going to use one of my keys. And something else that I should do now is enable the firewall. Now, Postal, the way Postal works, it uses Docker. And if you know about Docker, you know that at least you need some firewall between your VPS and the world, right? So before you make anything publicly accessible, make sure there's a firewall between you and Docker. And that does not include the firewall that is built into your operating system. So since I'm using Debian, UFW will be there, but we're going to disable the UFW and just let Docker do its thing. Let me show you how you can create a firewall, because this is important. And just before I continue, just know this is not going to be a short video, because you're going to do a lot of things in this video. So bear that in mind. Be prepared. It's not going to be a short one. So let me just open anything else here. So let me show you how you can create a firewall. Open link in a new tab. Let me create the firewall. To create a firewall, come here under network and then select firewall. So I'm going to add a firewall group. Give it a name. I'll call it Postal. I can't see what I'm typing there, but it's Postal. And then add the firewall group. All right, now that is done. The firewall has no rules, so we can add some rules. By default, it accepts the SSH port, but we need to add other rules. So for IPv4, I'm going to add a rule. Click on the plus. And the first rule I want to add here is SSH HTTPS. I'm just going to allow HTTPS only. I'll go to the next port. I need to allow the SMTP port, and by default, Postal uses port 25, and they actually recommend use port 25. So just stick with the default. I'm going to click on TCP, and here I will give it port 25. Click on plus. Port 25 is added. Which other port are we going to need here? So Postal is responsible for sending. It doesn't really handle all the things that are related with Dovecot. So things like port 993, 995, those are not important here. Anyway, if there's any other port we'll need, we're just going to add it later on. I'm going to add other ports here as well for mail. I can add port 587. And also, if you're going to change your SSH port, make sure you add the new port here. So I'm just going to leave it at that for now. Those are the ports I'll allow. And then let's come back here to firewall group. So of course, I can't select it until I refresh. So I'm not going to refresh. I'm just going to select it later on. Server host name. I'm going to use this domain on Cloudflare for all demonstrations. So let me use this, and most importantly, I want to add this here as a host name, and the reason I'll add it is because it's going to automatically set up the host name for me, and I can use that. For all the mail servers, I'm going to use something like mail.dat. Okay, so this will be my main host name. So I'm going to copy that and then bring it back to Vultr, and I'm going to add it there as my host name. Since this is a demonstration, I can disable automatic backups. I can also enable IPv6, and the rest I can just leave them as they are. So let's confirm. Location, Chicago. Cause, memory, Debian, SSH key setup. So I'm going to deploy. Let it continue provisioning. I'm waiting for the IP. I want to add this on Cloudflare. There is our IP. Copy the IP. Let me add an A record for my domain. And I want to add an A record for mail. Enter the IP, and I will gray it out. Okay, to gray it out just means unproxying. And then I'm going to save. This is going to be our mail server. I don't want to access my postal web interface using the same domain. So I'm going to create another one here. Let me call it mail app. And I'm going to add the record. So later on, we are going to use this. For this one, you can proxy it because this is for HTTPS. This is how you're going to access the web interface for postal. For now, I can leave it proxied, and I just want to test. I'll test and see if it works when it's proxied. That is the initial setup. So I will save. Let's log into the server. Copy the IP. The user by default will be root. And remember, I set up an SSH key. So that's what I'm going to use to log in. So at this point, I know if you're using Windows, you're probably wondering what you should use. If you're on Windows, don't worry about it. You can follow step by step without changing any commands. And what you'll need is to go to Google, search for Git. Git download, you can search for Git download and then download it for Windows, install it, and then open Git Bash. Open Git Bash and follow along. Git Bash is a terminal you can use on Windows to run Linux commands. That's all you need if you're on Windows, nothing else. If you're on a Mac or Linux, just open your terminal and follow along. I will open up my terminal. SSH. The user is root. Ctrl-Shift-V to paste on the Linux terminal. If you're on Git Bash, you can paste using Shift Insert. And I want to use my key to log in. So identity of the key, and I know it's inside of SSH. SSH. That's the key. You can log in with a password if you want to. I believe they haven't blocked logging in with a password, and you can get your password. If you click on it, that is your server. Your password is there. You can copy it and try to log in with that. All right, there we go. Control L to clear the screen. So the first thing I want to do is to update the server. I'm assuming you have some idea of how to manage your Linux server, because if you don't, it's going to be really hard for you to manage your mail server. So with that said, you should do everything to secure your server. I do have an initial server setup for Debian 12, and you can follow the steps to make sure your server is in the same level. The only thing you'll need to skip there is the firewall setup, because we're not going to use UFW. I'm also not going to do those things here. I just want to show you how to set up your mail server with Postal. But with that said, the first thing I want to do here, I want to disable password authentication. And I know in Vultr, they use Cloudinit, and Cloudinit usually creates a certain file here that I can use to disable password authentication. That means that to log in, you have to use the SSH key. SSHD tab autocomplete, tab autocomplete, tab to autocomplete, and this is a file. If I open this file, password authentication is yes. I want to make it no. Shift ZZ to save on Vim. At some point, I'm going to restart the server, so I don't really need to restart SSH. So the next thing after this is, let me add additional IPs. Right now, if I do IP A, I only have the one IP, the one IP4, and the accompanying IPv6. So let's see how to add the additional IPs. You can do this later, but let me do it now. I will go into my Valtra account and I want to provision some reserved IPs. So if I go into networking, I can go to reserved IPs. So the good thing with Valtra, this process is very easy. Just make sure your IP is in the same data center as the server you want to attach it to. So I'm going to add a reserved IP and choose Chicago. That's where my server is. And then you can give it a label. Let me call it mail 0. I will add IP. Remember, it's $3 per month. So I'll add a second one. So if you need to add more, you'll just follow everything. I'm adding 2 just to show you an example of how to go about it. So I'll add a second one. And also in Chicago, label, I'll call this mail 1, add IP. So they're both in Chicago. And I will go back to the IP, the first one. And then I will attach it to my server. It's the only one there. So I will attach it to the server. So this is kind of like in VirtualBox when you maybe add an additional IP, you attach it to that server, but the server still doesn't know that it is attached to it. So that's the next thing we're going to do after attaching it here. This is just to let the virtualizer know that that IP belongs to that machine. So I'm going to go to the next one and do the same thing and attach it. So you can see attached to the instance there. The next one will also be attached to the same instance. Attach. That's not the end of it. We have to go back to the server, go to compute and click on it. You want to go to the settings for this server, and I'll come here under settings. So you can see it's quite easy to do on Valtra, and the reason why I'm saying it's easy is because the moment I click on this, it's going to give me exactly what I need to add to my Debian to get it to work. So you can see on Debian, it has generated what I need for my interfaces. And this is what I'll need to add on my server. So there's the first address. This is a default address. And then this is the IPv6 that it came with. And this is the IP I've just gotten now. And this is also the IP I've just gotten now. Copy. And you can actually see what's inside that file. Cut. Control-Shift-V. This is what is in that file. We need to remove everything and add what we've gotten from Valtra. And just in case you want to, you can actually save it in future. If you want to go back to the default, you can simply bring back the old configuration. So I'm just going to save it in the same location as .back. And now I can edit it. VI, Control-Shift-V, enter. I want to delete everything in this file. Since I'm using Vim, I can just do something like 20 dd. Basically, it's saying that delete the next 20 lines. So since the lines are less than 20, it will delete everything. And then I'll go back and copy what we've gotten from Valtra. I'll just select everything from here. Control-Shift-V. And then I'm just going to escape out of that. Click escape, Shift-ZZ to save. All right, so from here we can restart the server. Is there anything else I need to do before I restart the server? So I do have a Debian initial server setup, and if you just come here, you can search for it. And the one you want, you see these are videos, but the one you want is this one. You can follow this to set up the server. And one thing I'd recommend is you create an admin user that you can use with the server. In my case, I'm going to use root. That's the only reason I brought you to this post. But in my case, I'm going to use root. I'm just going to continue with root. So at this point, you can reboot. Before I reboot the server, I want to edit the host name. So even now, if I look at IPA, it's still going to show me the old IP. So I'll need to reboot, but first of all, I want to edit my hosts file. Now, one of the most important thing, especially if you're sending to Google, they will reject your email if the reverse DNS is not set up. And for you to set up the reverse DNS, you have to make sure that your hosts file has the correct IP, or rather the correct host name set up. So in this case, let me do cat. I want to check etc hosts file, and you can see, okay, this one has been set here. So this is roughly correct, and I'm going to copy this, and I just want to add what I need to add here. Control V. You're going to see how to set this up. So that's mail, that's the first one. I have 3 IPs, so Control V. This one I will use as mail 0 as the host name for that, and then for the third IP I'm going to use this. So of course I need to add the IPs. So let's go back and get the IP addresses, additional IPs, copy the second additional IP, Control V, and then the second additional IP, oh, I mean the default IP that will be used as the main host name right there. So I'm going to, before copying that, let me come back to the server, and on Vultr, if you want to change your host name, just add it in here. Just add it inside of that template, because if you add it here, it will be lost the next time you reboot the server. So VI Control Shift V to edit that template, and I'm just going to add this. We are trying to get our mail delivered to all mail servers. So just after this, let me add this, Control Shift V, like that. And then I will save that, escape, Shift ZZ. So at this point I can reboot, and I'll reboot via the Vultr dashboard. So I'll just restart it there, server restart the server. And once that is done, we're going to see our IP addresses have been added there. And while that is happening, let me add the A records for all our extra IPs. We already have one for mail, that is it. So let's add the one for mail.0. So add a record, mail.0, I mean mail 0, paste the IP, and I'm going to unproxy that, save, get the second IP will be mail 1, copy, add an A record for this, it will be mail 1, paste the IP, unproxy, and then save, mail 0, mail 1. All right, so we are halfway there. Before we even log back into the server, let us set up the correct reverse DNS for all our IPs. And then here under settings, is it under settings? Let's go to settings and check. Yes, here under settings, under IPv4, we need to change the reverse DNS. The reverse DNS for the main IP is that, paste, update, and then the reverse DNS for the second IP. We're trying to make sure our mail gets in the inbox. Paste, enter, let us paste that like that. That's all we have to do there. That's done. Let's go back to the server, log back in. And something I haven't done and I should have done is attach the firewall to this server. So where do let's go to networks, firewall, and the firewall was called Postal. So I'm just going to click on it. So here where it says linked instances, let me click on that. It's down here as well. So we only have the one instance, so it's already pre-selected, and I can just click there on plus to link it, add linked instance. Well and good. Now it shows we have one linked instance. If you want to link another, you can click there to link it. You can use the same firewall group for multiple instances. You can actually test it. You can disable SSH and test it if it's going to allow you to log in. The first thing I want to do is just check if my IPs are now recognized by Debian. So IPA, there we go. We have that IP there. INET, we have that one there. And then we have the IPv6. And I can update the system, apt update, and apt upgrade. So I'll just wait for this to finish and then we can continue. And the next thing we're going to do is to start installation. So we're going to install Docker, and I've put everything here to make it easy for you. So I'll copy that and wait for the installation to complete, for the update to complete, and then we'll start the Docker installation. All right, it's complete. Control L to clear the screen, Control Shift V to paste. Run that. So that has installed Docker, and you can see the hello Docker has been successfully run. So if you want to know more about this, just go to the Docker documentation. Everything is there. And then if you're not using the root user, make sure you add your current user to the Docker group. And this is going to allow you to run Docker without doing sudo docker this, sudo docker this, sudo docker, right? If you don't want that, this is what you do. And then reboot the server to make sure that you can run without using sudo. We need to get the Postal installation helper. So this is a helper repository. It has all the Docker Compose files that will install and set up your Postal installation, Postal SMTP installation. First, let's install these prerequisites. Some of these are probably already installed, but let me just install them. Enter. And the next step is we want to clone the repository. You can go to the Postal GitHub repository to look at it, but you're going to clone it, and then a symlink will be set up for that so that it is in the user bin directory. It is important for it to be in the user bin directory is so that you can use Postal without having to go to the direct path. Okay, so you can just say Postal restart, Postal stop. That's why you create that symlink. Then I'll copy, Control L. Let me just do this inside of a directory. I'm going to do mkdir and I'll call it work directory. Then I'll go into that directory. So I can work inside of this directory. Paste, Control Shift V, enter. There we go. If we do an ls, we won't see anything in here because it was automatically put in there. But we're going to use this directory to create certain compose files for other things like database and KDE that are needed by Postal. The next step is to install MariaDB. So according to the documentation on Postal, you can go to the documentation right there. Some of these steps are there. This is what they use to install MariaDB, and it will give you MariaDB, which version was installed here. I don't know which version that is, but I have this compose file, and this is the one I'm going to use. And this compose file will install MariaDB 11.4, which is the latest LTS version as of the date of this recording. So I'm just going to create the Docker Compose file, copy, Control-Shift-V to paste. I will add everything here. So note that we're going to create an env file for the password. Instead of adding the password there, we're going to create an env file for the database password. I've just decided for Postal to use the root user, and that will give it dominion over all MariaDB database. So it can create tables, create databases, and the schema, everything needed without any issues. So I'm going to save this, Shift ZZ. The next thing, I need to create the env file, vi.env, in the same directory as the compose file. And in that, I want to add the password for my database. Generate a password here. Copy, Control-Shift-V, escape, Shift ZZ. Of course, let's bring the database up. Right now, if we do docker container ls, we don't have any containers running, but let's bring the MariaDB database up. Docker compose up in the background. Enter. All right, let's look at all our containers. So you can see it's starting up. After a while, it should be healthy or not. And if it is not healthy, we're going to look at it and see why it is not healthy. So let's just wait for the database to be ready. Try again. Once the database is started, we're going to see if we can bootstrap a configuration file. And I don't want to type that, so I'm going to come back here, Control-V, and we want to bootstrap using this domain. Copy. So this is just going to generate the needed configurations. So any place where a domain is needed, maybe SMTP, it's going to add that domain. But remember, for the interface, I'm going to change the domain to mail app, and you're going to see how you can change that and ensure that it's working. So let's go back and check on our MariaDB. There you go. You can see now it's running, it's healthy. That's what I want to see. Now, let me run that. Control-Shift-V, enter. And you can see that has generated this. It has also generated the CADI file. So since I will not be using this to access my web server, to access the web interface for Postal, I'm going to have to edit the CADI file as well, but you're going to see that in a moment. For now, let's add the database details for this. So you can also use an env file to add the database details for that, but I'm just going to add it directly. You can use what is provided in the documentation, the env. If you come here under configuration, you can see all the possible environment variables, and you can use that in an env file. But in my case, I'm just going to add the database in this YAML configuration file. So since the web host name, this is where you access Postal on the browser, I want to use a different domain here. So I'm going to use mail app. Anything else I need to edit? SMTP host name will be the same. Main database, the username will be root. If you used a different user other than root, make sure you change the username there. And for the password, I'm just going to use a literal password. I'll copy that. Control-Shift-V, paste it in there. And then for the Postal database, you can call it whatever you want. In this case, I can call it Postal DB1. And then for the prefix, now for the message DB, the password is the same, Control-Shift-V. And then the prefix, you can also change the prefix. So the prefix is what comes in under the table name, maybe postal table name underscore table name. So for this, I can also just change it, maybe messages. Scroll down to see if there's anything here that you need to change. So for the DNS records, I'm going to add this later, not now. I'm going to add them once I add the domain to the postal interface, and I'm just going to use that to help me. And if we test and we see any errors, maybe it is not at 100%, maybe DMARC is not working, SPF is not being recognized, we're going to do those later on, all these DNS records. So this is not important here for now. So this configuration file, you can add lots and lots of different things. So if you come back to what I've just shown you here, if you go to the all environment full postal configuration file, you can find the different configurations that you can add to your postal, right? Use IP pools. Actually, I want to enable IP pools. And this is under postal. IP pools, that's something that I want to enable, and it is under postal. Control-Shift-V. IP pools true. If there's anything else you want to enable, you can do so here. DNS. These are all things you can set up. So custom return path. This is also something that it generates by default, but you can change this. So I'm just going to leave it at default, but you can change this, and you're going to see what this is later at some point once we send a sample email. So you can look at the configuration and edit whatever you need to edit, and then just add it in your configuration file. So that's all I need to edit here. I'm just going to escape and then Shift ZZ to save the configuration. Come back here, and this is a moment of truth. Okay, if you experience any problem once you run this, if you don't access the database, just know something is wrong, and you're going to need to figure out what the issue is. In my case, I hope I've set up everything correctly. So when I run postal initialize, it should work. So if you're unable to run this, you might need sudo. You might need to use sudo, but not always. So postal initialize, let it do that, pull the images. And so you can see this is where you can see the Docker Compose. If you go to this is what you downloaded with GitHub. This means that everything went well. If you don't see any error, everything went well. So you can look at the Docker Compose. That is the bare minimum Docker Compose. So the error you're seeing up here is because of that. You can just remove that, but just leave it. Maybe in the next release, they will edit this out. You need various services. Web. This is a web interface, and that is the image for the web interface. The network mode is host. Volumes, SMTP. If there's anything you want to add here, you can always come in here and add. For instance, if you change the MariaDB database network, you might need to change it here, but it needs to work with the host so that it can get access to your IPs. Maybe you want to run multiple worker nodes. You want to scale this. You can scale it here and run multiple containers of the worker container. So that's something you can do. And I'm not going to go any further than that. That's just showing you what is possible. Now that that worked, we can set up our first user. This is the user we're going to use to log into the web interface of Postal. So Control-Shift-V, make user. So the email address, I'm just going to use Wahowa, rickywahowa@gmail.com. Enter. First name Ricky Wahowa. That's me. Initial password. Let me just copy that, put it there. Control Shift V, enter. There we go. Now you're ready to log into your front end, but unfortunately you won't be able to if you did things the way I've just done it. And that is because I haven't changed something that's important. I need to edit the CADI file. So opt postal config. We've been editing this, but I need to edit the CADI one. So if I do Control R to search for the last thing I edited, to search for some of the things I've edited, VI postal, yeah, this is the one I need. So you can just do Control R to search. And here I want to edit the CADI file. Tab. Let's edit this, and our address for this is mail app dot escape shift ZZ. You can see how easy it is to use CADI. It will automatically issue an SSL. And now start running postal. I haven't started postal, and that's just all I need. If you want to check the status, if the containers are running, you can use postal status, postal restart to restart postal, and then Control Shift V. Let's start postal now. The next step, of course, is to proxy the web traffic. Now, of course, I can use that, but I'd rather put this in the same compose file. Or if you want to, you can put it in its own compose file, give it whatever name you want to give it, and then when you're running it, you'll run it as docker compose-f for file name, and then the name of the compose file. But in this case, I'm just going to add this in the compose file I already have. So I'm going to do vi, and the compose file is in this current directory. So if I do d tab, it will autocomplete the name, enter, and at the end here, just before volume, let me add Shift I and then escape. I want to add that, so Control Shift V, and of course format it correctly so that it is in the same line with that. So I'm just going to do U to undo that, and let me go into insert mode, and as long as I'm in insert mode, I want it to be in the same line with that. 1, 2, Control Shift V. Just make sure that you format it correctly. These are 2 spaces, and so an easier way to put it, just know that this 2 spaces and this 4 spaces, and it should now be correctly formatted. And then I'll just escape, Shift ZZ, and now I can rerun my Docker Compose. So I can just search for it again, Control R, and I think it's the only thing that had -d. So I'm just going to run it up again, Docker Compose app -d, enter. Okay, there we go. CADI is now started. So theoretically, we should be able to access CADI, to access the front end by going to mailapp.domain. .domain. Enter. So I think the issue is the Cloudflare proxy. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to unproxy it. Save. Okay, so it's not even the proxy. The issue is UFW. If I do Control L and I do UFW status, if you're not the root user, do sudo UFW status, you'll see that we have not allowed the SSL port. And if I do IP tables -L to list all the rules, you're going to see that Docker has added something here. Where are we? So you'll see UFW has added rules. Docker has added rules. So even in the documentation of Docker, they say they don't play well together. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to disable it. And of course, I added something down here to disable it. Did I add it? Okay, I didn't add it, and I should definitely add it here. To disable UFW. It's not that difficult. You can just do sudo UFW disable. So firewall stopped, and then you also need to stop it. Systemctl stop UFW, and then you also need to stop it from starting with the system. So I'm going to disable it, and if you want to go further, you can even uninstall it, but I'm just going to leave it running. So with that, let's see if anything has improved here. Okay, so right now it's working. If you see that, it means that we are able to access our server, but the issue now is we have to rerun Kadi to issue the SSL. So Docker Compose, let me just bring this down. Docker Compose down. I'll bring it down, and then I'll bring it up again. Docker Compose up -d. Hopefully this will have fixed our SSL issue. We are now in SSL mode. If we reload it, there we go. You can now log in to Postal. Come back and log in with your email, Arwa. The email was Arwahowa for Ricky Wahowa, and then I'm going to paste login. I want to stay logged in, so remember me. Right, so that is Postal for you. So first thing you need to do is add an organization. So I will create a first organization, and you can create as many organizations as you have. Trial 1. This one needs to be small letters, so I'll just call it trial 1. Create organization. There are no mail servers, so I will build the first mail server. So this one as well, I'll just call it first server. Short name, I think that will be generated. Mode live, so come to edit it and make it development or live. So let's make it live. And the IP pool, there are no IP pools, but you can see we are able to set up IP pools. So if you didn't add the option I added for IP pools, this will not be there. You need to add that option first. In your configuration file, stop Postal and then restart it. So at this point, I can just build the first server. Now let me add a domain. So I can just add this domain and add the DNS records at this point. So copy that, and I want to add that, and then I'll add the DNS records here. So you can read about sending and receiving mail. So on the dashboard here, you can do everything. Let's go to domains. I want to add a domain. Add the domain. I just need to test, make sure everything is working before I end the video. For the domain, create domain. And now we need to add these records. We need to add these records here. But even before doing this, let me come back to the documentation, and under DNS configuration, let me add some important ones. So these ones we've already added. Of course, I've not added the IPv6. To add IPv6 records for the A record, you just need the code A record. Instead of A, choose A, the code A record. I'm not going to deal with that. I'm not going to add that. That's something you can do. This we've already set up. Host name. Now for the host name, the MX records, which are the default MX records? Let's look at the MX records that we were told we should have. So I'll just do Control R again to search for postal.yaml. Okay, there we go. So I want to look at Control A to go to the beginning of the line, and then I just want to cut it. And what I'm looking for is DNS. Okay, so here under DNS, we have this MX. So let's add this mx.digbytes MX records for all domains will be that. An A record for the MX records. So that's there. And you don't need to add all the IPs. You just need to add the main IP. So for this, I'll just paste it there. MX and the IP, the main IP for our server, that's the one we're going to use there. Copy. And if you're on Cloudflare, all the records you add, make sure you gray them out. And then I'll save. Let's add this as an A record. And proxy, save, route as well, add, paste, and then which other one? Okay, track. If you need to track your emails, let us add that one as well. And proxy, enter. Let's wait and see. Let's see what we have here. If I come to my postal, where is postal? There. We'll need SPF record. Okay, there. We'll need a DKIM record. Return path RP. We need to set up a CNAME to RP for this. And then MX records. So this PSRP is what I was telling you. If you don't want it to be like that, the return path, if you come here under configuration, there is something to do with, where is it? Under DNS. Are we under DNS? Okay, under DNS, you can change the custom return path. Okay, so add whatever you want. Maybe you want yours to be mail D or mail B. You can add whatever you want there. And then MX records, we need to add a root level MX record for that. So let's come back here again. So we've added at least an MX record there with an A record. SPF record, let's use this SPF record, and I'm going to edit it. SPF record, let me put it under this, Control V, and we are going to need to allow that IP, Control V, and then IPv4. Let's copy this one again, Control C, Control V, Control V, because we need to add it for this one. For the second IP, the second IP, Control V, and then for the IPv6, let's get the IP from Vultr, and we can copy our IPv6 right there and add it there. So it's also allowed to send mails for our server. Copy. And for this to work, make sure you add the matching A records, matching code A records. Let's come here and we're going to add a TXT record. TXT. Let's just search for TXT. Enter. And this is going to be the root domain. Paste. And for that, let's say it exclusively sends to that. So you use a dash there instead of the tilde. And then I'll save. And then I'll add the same. I'll add the same for PSRP. I'll also have it use the same SPF record. So txt name psrp. Paste that, save. So for the SPF records, well and good. Okay, so I understand something here. Let me also add it for SPF. And this is a way for you to make sure that even others don't really need to add it. Other people using the server, other domains won't need to add it. I finally understood what that was about. I was wondering, why are you adding that there again? spf.mail. And if I add it with my IP, okay, this is supposed to be a txt record. spf.mail, paste. And we added the A record for SPF. So all these which are here, let's just add A records for them. Some of them have probably added. So if you see an error, it means that it has already been added and Cloudflare cannot duplicate. So I'm going to use the main IP here. I'm going to use the main IP for the server. And you can also add for the IPv6. So if you want to add for the IPv6, let me paste first. If you want to add for the IPv6, you're just going to use the code A record with the same record, and then you add the IPv6 record there, and then on proxy. So at this point, we have lots of records, lots and lots of records. And if you come back to the domain that we've added, let's see what it's going to tell us. I've added this, I've added that, I've added that. mx.mail. Let me add an mx record at the root level. Mx at the root level. Add record. mx. And we're going to add at the root level. Paste. Is this really an mx? Why am I not seeing the mx features? All right, so at the root, and then paste, and we're going to give it a priority of 10, and then we're going to save that. Let me see what else I need to add for this. Okay, so for the SPF record, include this. I really don't need to add this because I've already added the IP, so I don't think this is really necessary. But if we receive any errors, once we start checking our emails, we'll see if that is something I need to add. This is important. So I'm going to add this domain key, copy. Let's come to that, add txt record, paste. I'll copy the entirety of the DKIM record, Control V, enter. Return path RP. Did I add an A record for that? PSRP. Okay, it doesn't have an A record, but this has an A record. So let's add this PSRP as a CNAME. So let's add CNAME and then paste that, and I'll come back and this one, copy, put it there, and of course gray it out, save. We've already added this. If you wish to receive incoming emails, if you'll not be receiving incoming emails, you don't need to add an MX record, MX records to the domain. So it's important to note what Postal can do. Postal can send email, but you can't receive in the natural sense of what you're used to. So for you to receive, you'll have to set up some form of routing, and the routing is going to help let Postal know where to send that email. You can route to another SMTP server, to another email, and so on. So let me just check my DNS records. So there seems to be something wrong with your DNS records. Check below for the information. An SPF record exists, but it doesn't include that. All right. And for who are we including that? Okay, this. All right, no problem. Let's just include it. Let us just include that. All I need to do is to add it. All I need to do is to add it in the root domain. So where is the txt for the SPF? SPF.mail, PSRP. The one that I need to edit is this one. So the root domain needs to add that. I don't know why they insist on it, but the IP is already covering it. Control V, include that. And then I'll save. And I can check again. All right, so everything is green now. The moment of truth. Let's try to send an email to Gmail. Come here under messages. I will send message. Let's just send to that. Send. So it's probably in the spam folder. Okay, it has gone to the spam folder. And I want to check what Google thinks about my email. So I'll click there, show original. Show original. And so SPF has passed and it was sent with IPv6. DKIM has passed. Anyway, the good thing with Postal is that if this fails to deliver, it's just going to default back to the IPv4 and it will try to deliver with the IPv4. This shouldn't worry you because that's how Postal works. It will automatically default to the IPv4 if this fails to deliver the message. So let me go to Mail Tester, and Mail Tester is going to give me an actionable list that will allow me to improve my mail server. So let's come back here and we're going to send to that mailtester.com. So I hope I have not finished my quota for the day. Try to send. And then check your score. Okay, so apparently I've finished my quota, but that is not a problem. This is what we do. Let's go to the Opera browser, private window. I'm going to enable VPN and I can go to mailtester.com. Copy. And let's come back here. I will send the message again. Paste. Send. Check. All right, so our score is currently 7 out of 10. So let's see what the issue is, and we're going to try and fix them one at a time. So the bigger deal is here, you're not fully authenticated. So SPF, your server is authorized to use, that's good. Your DKIM signature is valid, that's good. You do not have a DMARC record. So DMARC, that's not a problem. We're just going to copy this DMARC record. Copy. Let me increase this font. Copy the DMARC. And I'll come back here to Cloudflare. Add another TXT record. TXT. And I'll just copy this. What is here? DMARC reject. Come back. We're going to reject all email. And at the same time, you can report to us anything in this email. So we can say something like postmaster and then save. Let's see if there's any other issue. So DMARC was one. And here we have a big problem for which one? We didn't find a mail server MX record behind your domain name PSRP device. I can add an MX record for that server. And what is our default? What is our default MX record? I'm just going to use the same one, copy and add MX record for PS RP. Control V and priority of 10. And then we're going to save that. And in the next time we send, we are going to see if that is fixed. Your message could be improved. Who cares? That's a test email. All right, let's do the test again. And hopefully this time round, we are going to get better than 7. So let's go to mailtester.com again. I will copy that, come back, send a message, paste, send message, come here, check the score. Oh, still 7. Okay, probably. Okay, you can see something else has been improved. There was an issue up there that is now improved. It's no longer affecting us. That is the SPF record is no longer an issue. Now the next thing that is being an issue is we didn't find a mail server at that. Okay. So this is probably because I've just changed the record now, but I've already added the MX record for that. That will require just a bit of time. Let's just confirm this. Copy. I can use DNS check for this. DNS check. DNS checker. I want to check the MX record. Paste. MX search. Okay, you can see the issue is it's still propagating in certain places. So that is fixed. And I haven't tested my mail server. I should test my mail server. Where is the mail server tester? So test email server, Control V, mail server. This is an important one. All right, we can see everything is green. This is a good sign, a very good sign. This is something that is set up by default on Postal. You need to enable SSL. So let's enable Postal SMTP SSL. And then we're going to come back here and rerun this test. So click there on SMTP TLS. And I don't want to use the certificate. I'll just generate a self-signed certificate. These are machines talking to each other, so it doesn't really matter the certificate I use. Control-Shift-V to generate a certificate, and I can even make it a certificate valid for 10 years. So I'll enter. And I need to add some of these records. I'll just set KE. That is for Kenya. And then organization name, Bizanosa. Enter. The rest I can just enter. And that should generate the certificate. And now I have to enable TLS. Copy, enable TLS. Let's come back here and we need to edit the Postal configuration file. Control A to go to the beginning of the line, Control Delete to delete that, VI, enter, and it's under SMTP server, right? Control Shift V to paste TLS enabled true, escape, Shift ZZ. And then the next thing, let's just restart Postal. So Postal restart. Let's run this again. Last time we got does not support TLS. Let's run the test again. And this time round, everything seems to be okay. It resolves to our host name and we are done with this bit. Now, let's do a final test just to make sure that this is not something else. So this will be the last test. After this, my quarter will be done. So copy that. Let's come back to Postal. Let's send another message. Send message. Control V. Send. Come back here. Check your score. There we go. 10 out of 10. Everything is good. All right. That's that. Let's forget about all that now and let's move on to how to set up the IP pools. So the IP pools is a way for you to distribute the email sending capacity between different IPs. So if you have multiple IPs, you can distribute the emails among these IPs. So let's see how to set that up on Postal, and we're going to test it to make sure that our email has been sent by a specific IP. If you come here, you can see in this case, that's what was used to send our email. Now let's set it up. Let us set it up, and until we see one of our extra IPs has been used, then we'll assume that the setup is not successful. We're not going to end the video until we see one of our IPs, this or this, has been used for sending the email. And these are the primary. This is the primary IP and these are the additional IPs. So let's start by adding this IP. Copy. Let's go to our Postal server. Click on IP pools. So to enable IP pools, you need to do what I did. You have to enable it in the configuration and then restart Postal. Otherwise, you'll not have this link here. So create the first IP pool. We'll call this the default pool. And then I can create an IP pool. Let's add some IPs to that pool. And then I will add an IP address. And for this, let me just add the first additional IP first. And the host name for this was that. So make sure you add this one as well. The host name as you added it in your DNS records. Paste. And priority goes from 1 to 100. So 100 has the highest priority. So in this case, since I want to test this, let me give this a priority of 100. And then I will create the IP address pool. Then let me add it along with this. And this is the default IP which will be used. So if this other IP is being used are unsuccessful, mail will default to the default IP and it will try to send with the default IP. So for this one, our host name was that. Copy. Control V. And the priority for this, let me give it a priority of 1. Create IP. And update. Adding the other one, let's test it. Update the pool. We want to test and see if it's going to send the email. Let's click there on Postal. Click there on trial. This is the organization. And then let's go to the server. And then here under server, is it under settings? Okay, IP. Is it settings or organization? Okay, I'm a bit confused. Just give me a moment here to get to the right place. So trial was our first organization. Okay, so here under organization, you need to add it here. You need to select an IP pool for this organization. So if you have multiple organizations, the IP pool could be something like this is for marketing, this is for developers, and maybe this is for billing. You can put different IPs in different pools. I will select the pool as the default pool that I've just created. save IP pool assignment. So it has been assigned to this organization. That means that that's the pool they're going to use to send emails. If you have multiple emails, you can divide them among your organizations. So let's go to the mail server. Let's just go straight to the domains. Okay. Let's go to mail, and then into the first server, we are going to go into messages. We want to test if it can send, and then okay, let's go back a step. There's something that I came across on GitHub that I need to do first before I even try to send the email, because it's going to fail if I don't do this. So let me go to settings, and then here under IP rules, I need to add an IP rule. So I will add server rule. So to address, leave that blank, and then from address, add the domain which are here. So the domains which are under this server, you can add all of them here, but in this case I only have the one. Thank God I only have the one. I can add this one domain. So this simply says that only this domain is allowed to send from this IP, to use this server to send. If you have multiple, just add the next one in the next line and so on. And then select the pool, the default pool, save rule. So another thing, you can also create another rule. Maybe you want it for different domains to use something else. You can do so by creating another pool. Maybe you want it to use a different pool by creating another rule. Maybe you want it to use a different pool. That's something you can do. Multiple pools, multiple rules, and so on. So let's go and test it. Without this, it will fail. And it failed for me a couple of times. Let me come here into messages, and I will send. So let me send it to Gmail. R and send folder. So let's see the moment of truth, which IP was used. And you can see it used this IP to send. Okay. Now you can add as many IPs as you want, and based on what you set, different IPs can send a certain number of emails based on what you send. Let's go back to IP pools. IP pool. Let's click on default. So you can see this had a priority of 100. So if we want to change this priority, let's try and make this priority. Let's make this a priority of 50. If we change the priority of this maybe to like 40, change it to like 49, update. Messages, send message. It's now sending with this second IP. Let us send another one. I'm just going to send to the same email address to see if it's going to so I have 3. Let's see. Show original. That's sent with the main IP. Show original. That's sent with the other IP. Show original. And that's sent with the main IP. All right. So that's how you can set up Postal. I know the video has been long, but I tried as much as possible not to skip any steps. You've also seen me test the IP pool system, and it's working. The reason why I used Vultr was because the interface is easy to use. You can add as many IPs as you need to add. DigitalOcean also has the same features. The interface is good also. If you're going to use any cloud provider, feel free to support my endeavors. I hope this is going to help you to set up a robust server. Now, the next thing you need to read up on is how to warm up your email, how to warm up your IPs. For every new IP, make sure you send like 10 today, 15 tomorrow, 20, until you even get to 10,000 a day or even 100K a day. That's how you warm up your IP. The idea is to ensure that you're not blocked instantly, because if they see a new IP, if ISPs and other cloud providers, SMTP servers see a new IP, they don't expect it to be sending 10K emails a day. So that's what IP warming is all about, building trust. Take your time to build your IP's trust and make sure you monitor all your IPs. If they're put in any block list, you go to that block list and then you unblock them. Most block lists allow unblocking. There's a reason why they were blocked. Just look at it, see how you can get it unblocked. Make sure you have multiple IPs. It's not enough to send with like 3 IPs. You need a lot of IPs. If you're going to send millions of emails, you want it such that you can send with many IPs. You can decide to use both IPv4 and IPv6. It's entirely up to you, but there are certain SMTP servers that don't support IPv6 entirely. So that's also another drawback with IPv6, but almost every SMTP server will support IPv4. So if you're going to set up your server, consider using any one of these. I'll add all the links in the description. If you have any question, let me know. Most importantly, if you're going to run a mail server, make sure it is secure. Postal. If there's anything else, you can always go to the documentation. You can always go to the Postal discussions, issues, and that's going to help you resolve any issue you're currently having. All right, that's it for this one. I'll put all the links in the description below.